Picture yourself as an ordinary person in the 19th century. Your name is Pierre. You are 19 years old, a blacksmith from a small Norman village. You have a wife, Mary, who carries your first child. Yesterday you were thinking about expanding the forge come spring. Today you are standing in the front line of French infantry at Austerlitz. The statistics of the Napoleonic Wars are brutal. Frontline soldiers live an average of 12 minutes after battle begins. 12 minutes between the first volley and death. Out of 50 men in your row, only 9 to 10 will be alive by day's end. You look into your right. There stands John, the baker from the neighboring village. To your left, Louis, the farmer, who has 3 children at home. Behind you, Corporal Morel whispers a prayer. By evening, you will never see most of these faces again. You are standing in the first line. You see the same rows of soldiers across from you, your enemies. Each one holds their muskets pointed straight at you. Then someone shouts, "Fire!" You all shoot at the enemy. Smoke, thunder, clashing metal. Now it's the enemy's turn. You watch them raise their muskets, take aim. A second of silence. Then the roar of their volley. The soldier to your right falls with a bullet through his chest. To your left, another grabs his throat, blood following between his fingers. But you are unharmed. For a moment you feel relief. You survived. But shame immediately follows the joy. Someone died next to you, and you were simply lucky. Nobody runs. Nobody takes cover. You just stand there and reload, while cannonballs fly overhead, preparing for the next volley. Your first thought, this is madness. Your second, it would be better to fight with swords in close combat than to stand here, helplessly waiting for death. But however insane this tactic might seem, the system made perfect sense, and it dominated warfare over 400 years. But to understand the logic behind this apparent madness, we need to go back to a time when wars were fought completely differently. Your great-grandfather, blacksmith Henry, also fought in wars, but his war looked completely different. During the Battle of Agincourt, Henry stood in a crowd of French knights and foot soldiers. No lines, no organization, just pure chaos. Thousands of warriors running around, like children at a fair. Everyone fighting their own personal battle. No coordination, no plan. It was like the worst stampede in history, except with swords and axes. The biggest, strongest, most armored fighter usually won. Not the smartest, not the most organized. Whoever swung their weapon hardest. No tactics, no strategy. Just run at the enemy and hope for the best. Henry was a simple foot soldier with a spear. In that case, his life depended only on personal strength and luck. He survived Agincourt, but lost 2 brothers. Not from English arrows. They were trampled by their own cavalry. Then gunpowder appeared, and everything changed. Suddenly, some peasant with a musket could drop a knight in full armor from 100 yards away. All that expensive training and gleaming armor became useless against a lead ball, flying at 1,000 feet per second. But here is the problem with early guns. They were unreliable, took forever to load, misfired constantly, broke all the time. One soldier with a musket was pretty useless, but 100 soldiers with muskets, that's a whole different story. And then some brilliant military officer, whose name history didn't preserve, got an idea. What if we line these men up and make them all shoot at the same time? But only one man could turn this idea into deadly reality. And the following story explains why linear tactics became a revolution. Spain, 15th century. Captain Gonzalo de Córdoba faced a problem. His units of 300 soldiers had to fight 2,000 French knights at Cerignola. In traditional combat, this would be a massacre. Heavy cavalry would crush the shooters in minutes. But Córdoba was a self-taught mathematician. He understood a simple truth. It's not about individual accuracy. It's about concentrated fire. Córdoba arranged his men in 3 lines of 100 each. The first line fired and crouched to reload. Then the third line stepped up and fired too. By the time the third line had fired, the first was ready again. He invented the world's first machine gun, made of humans. When the French cavalry charged, they didn't meet scattered shoots, but a wall of lead. Every 20 seconds, 100 musket balls flew their way. The math was simple and brutal. If each musket has 10% chance of hitting, 100 muskets have a 99 chance that someone hits. French knights fell like wheat before the scythe. Out of 2,000 riders, fewer than 200 completed the charge. The rest lay on the field, struck by peasants with guns. In that moment, Cordoba realized he'd created not just a new tactic, he created a new way of waging war. Later this tactic would be called caracolle, but this system required inhuman discipline. Sure, concentrated fire could crash any attack, but only if soldiers acted as a single mechanism. And creating such a mechanism from people proved harder than defeating the French knights. Prussia, 1740. Sergeant Hans Müller trained recruits for Frederick the Great's army, every day, 6 hours straight, for years, until soldiers could load and fire in their sleep. Müller knew a truth that civilians didn't understand. In linear combat, thinking soldiers are dead soldiers. He needed human machines capable of following orders automatically. Imagine yourself as a Prussian grenadier. A comrade falls beside you. A bullet flies an inch from your ear. A cannonball takes off the corporal's hat. And you still methodically perform the learned sequence. Take cartridge, bite open, prime the pan, ram down, aim, fire. 3 shoots per minute, in perfect formation. While they are shooting at you, while shells explode nearby, while your best friend dropped dead. This required inhuman discipline. Müller wasn't creating soldiers. He was creating components of a war machine. Each person became a cog in a mechanism that could grind up enemy armies. Frederick the Great said, a soldier must fear his corporal's stick more than the enemy's bullet. Harsh? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. Prussian discipline became legendary across Europe, but even the most perfect discipline was useless without the right weapons. And by the 19th century, military engineers had created the ideal killing system. By 1750, every element of linear warfare had been perfected. Musket, bayonet, artillery, cavalry, everything worked like clockwork. Now back to you, Pierre Dubois, 19-year-old a blacksmith from a Norman village, standing in the front line of the French infantry with your model 1777 musket. Smooth bore, large caliber, devastating at close range. It doesn't need accuracy. 49 other men are shooting beside you. It needs simplicity, so a scared soldier could load it in 20 seconds. After firing, a bayonet turns your musket into a spear. When the enemy charged your line, they made a wall of steel points. Try attacking that. It's like running into a meat grinder. Artillery covers the gaps between infantry units. Cannons loaded with grapeshots. Giant shotguns, charging cavalry at close range. And cavalry was the mobile strike force, hitting enemy flanks. But even they can't charge a prepared infantry square. Horses won't run into a wall of bayonets. It was like rock, paper, scissors, with deadly weapon. Infantry beats cavalry. Artillery beats infantry. Cavalry beats artillery. Combined properly, the system was nearly unstoppable. Napoleon perfected this system. His marshals moved massive formations around the battlefield, like chess pieces, concentrating overwhelming firepower where they needed. But even the most perfect machine has its price, and the cost of linear warfare wasn't measured just in money. During the Battle of Borodino, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Kutaisov commanded Russian artillery. That day he understood the true cost of linear tactics. The French attacked in waves. Perfect lines of blue uniforms marched to drum beats. Kutaisov gave the order, grapeshot. The cannon sped death at point-blank range. The first French line disappeared, simply ceased to exist. 200 men turned into bloody pulp in an instant. But the second line kept coming, and the third line, and a fourth. By day's end, Russians had lost 45,000 men. The French, 35. All in 12 hours of fighting, more than the population of a medieval city. Kutaisov survived, but forever understood. Linear tactics were industrial-scale death production, efficient, refined, merciless. People became raw material for the war machine. After Borodino, he wrote to his wife, "We've created a way of war where courage doesn't matter, only the willingness to stand and die on command." The system worked for 300 years, conquering continents and building empires. The Spanish conquered America, the British a quarter of the world. Napoleon nearly conquered Europe. But technology doesn't stand still, and what made linear tactics perfect eventually destroyed them. During the Battle of Gettysburg, General Louis Armistead led the last great linear attack in history. 15,000 Confederates marched in perfect formation, across open ground under fire from rifled muskets. New weapons changed everything. Instead of accuracy to maybe 100 yards, rifled musket killed at 500 yards and beyond. Suddenly, neat lines became giant targets. Armistead knew the math. With all muskets, his men would face effective fire for 30 seconds before reaching the target. Now for 2 minutes, 4 times longer under deadly fire. Out of 50,000 attackers, fewer than 1,000 reached Union positions. Armistead himself fell, flag in hand, the last night of linear warfare. But old habits die hard. Generals who'd spent their entire career studying Napoleonic tactics kept using them against new weapons. Attack enemy positions became march slowly to slaughter. Machine guns put the final nail in the coffin. On the fields of the Somme, British forces attacked in neat lines against German machine gun nests. 60,000 casualties in one day, most in the first hours. World War became the graveyard of linear tactics. Trenches replaced formations. Individual marksmanship replaced volley fire. Small unit tactics replaced grand maneuvers. The age of standing in lines was over. But linear warfare didn't die. It evolved. Modern military formations use the same principle. Coordinated fire, mutual support, disciplined movement. Special forces storm buildings in formations. Police form lines against crowds. The British Army still practices drill movements that a Napoleonic soldier would recognize. Offensive lines in American football, defensive schemes in basketball. All about coordinated group action. The drill movements aren't military tactics anymore. They're art. Parade marches have become theatrical performances, where soldiers perform choreography created for the battlefield. Audience applaud what once meant death. So next time you see soldiers in formations at a parade, remember Pierre Dubois and his 12 minutes in the front line. What now looks like a beautiful show was once the deadliest tactic in history. And if this story about linear tactics interested you, hit that like button and subscribe. Because unlike Napoleonic soldiers, they don't need to stand in formation and wait for orders. You can act right now.